This is great, Matt, because you're letting me get to know my coworkers here better. This is stuff I didn't know at all. This is great. You know, for
We're
me,
more like just get to work, less talking. That's what we.
Yeah, exactly. We're whipping each other. Welcome back to another episode of Innersleeve. I'm Cassius Morris. Joe Pacheco joining me on the Zoom. What's up, Joe?
Man, same old. Just chipping away at the whole SoundMojo thing. And you?
Hey, doing good. You know, it's funny because this is the first intro we've done since the inception of the show without Frank. So it's just a little update with anybody for anybody who missed the last episode. Frank has moved on to his next opportunity. You will be seeing him in this episode, which we did as a podcast collab with Matt McGachy over at the Vox&Hops Podcast. We're going to give you all the info about that in just a moment. But yes, this was one of Frank's last shows, and I got to say, Joe, a real pleasure, the three of us getting to work together, in my view at least, and the stuff we've accomplished. It's been a hell of a fun year here at SoundMojo.
Yeah, totally, man. Like, I mean, I didn't know Frank until we started talking about making a podcast together. And then it's like, you know, you're working every day, Zoom calls back and forth with you. We had our meetings, tons of ideas, you know, and I, you know, what's interesting is we've been just tweaking the show the whole way, you know, from episode 1, like, we'll get some stability, but then like, let's try this, let's try that, you know? So it's been fun, like just tweaking it as we go. Sometimes it's not noticeable tweaks, but like, I know like in the back end, everything that, you know, we've done. But yeah, definitely sad to see Frank go. You know, it was fun working with him. It's always fun when you make, you know, easy friendships with people like with yourself, you know, it was just really easy. No hard work. Didn't have to try to be friends or anything. And super collaborative. That was the best part, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's a very lucky situation when you can have, you know, not only people who are easy to work with, like you're saying, Joe, but people you enjoy working with. You know, not something that everybody has. So yeah, we wish Frank all the best, and you will be seeing little moments of him as we phase into the next era of the show. Speaking of the show, we just wanted to remind you guys that the podcast is available every single week on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We want you guys to click that subscribe button wherever you're listening. And if you're tuned in on YouTube, click the little notification bell on SoundMojo to get real-time updates about everything we're doing. You can choose to have all the updates on our videos or just occasional updates. Of course, we recommend having them all on, but definitely make sure to go check us out. And we have the merch up right now. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, we do. We have caps, shirts, V-necks, even some pillows and phone cases. If you're interested, definitely check it out. The links are below in the description, as usual. And, you know, help support the channel. It goes a long way.
As mentioned, today's podcast is a collab with another program. We got on the air with the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast with the host himself, Matt McGachy. And we did a crossover show where we sort of interviewed each other, asked each other questions, and really just, it was less of an interview and more so just a general conversation about music, rock and roll, podcasting, and of course, a little bit of beer talk as well. Yeah. I think this was a lot of fun, Joe, at least from my perspective.
Well, this is super interesting because like the people, like the audience will notice that it's sort of almost like if you wanted to get to know more about us, Cassius, me, Frank, how SoundMojo got started, you know, Matt did a great job at like interviewing us basically on our own show, you know, and
I know he did good.
He did really good, and some interesting questions, man. Stuff we didn't think about, like, wow, I never thought about that, right? Like we spoke about like just, you know, just to give you guys some ideas, how we coped with the pandemic, our first beers ever as kids, or whenever we had our beers, if we're metalheads or not, you know, because he does his podcast, Vox&Hops, is extreme metal, I guess, is probably the most umbrella term, you know, where he hints, you know, musicians and everything in the extreme metal scene. So it was fun, you know, like we had seen his podcast, I had seen his podcast, you know, pop up in my feed on Instagram and stuff over the last few months. And I was like, oh, I got to reach out to that guy. And he was on his side seeing the same things, like, hey, this looks like WatchMojo. This feels like WatchMojo, you know, like, and then he hit me up and I was like, oh, beautiful, man. Like, you know, let's just make this happen. And it was so quick. It just happened. And I think we had a great time. We go in depth into a lot of things.
Yeah, no, it definitely made sense for us to collab. And, you know, there's somebody else from the Montreal scene who's just absolutely kicking ass and definitely just, you know, continuing to fly that flag.
This is like, what, episode 49 of ours? It's 309 of his. So it's like he's been at it. So anyways, I think it's a great conversation. Stay tuned.
Definitely. We'll get into that in just a moment, and probably more to come between ourselves in terms of collaboration as well. I know we have a couple of little news stories we wanted to touch on before we jump into the podcast.
I just thought this was funny because like it made so much news about the fact that Adele had convinced Spotify to change the automatic shuffle option on Spotify, so that the album will play in the order that the artist wanted, right? So I just found that hilarious that's like, breaking news, like she got them to stop the automatic shuffle, which begs the question, why the hell would you automatically shuffle an album? I mean, it's obvious that the artist, to me, obvious that the artist put it together in a certain way, right? So that like you're going to listen to it this way, unless it's like
I completely agree.
Unless it's like a greatest hits. If it doesn't go chronologically, then it's more like, okay, it's whatever. And then like you have the option to shuffle anyway. So if somebody wanted to shuffle, they would just shuffle. Why would you do it automatically? Anyway.
That's the truth. I mean, as a music purist, I definitely agree. And like I would say, like a traditionalist is how I am when it comes to music. Even though I'm from the younger generation, I started with the vinyl records and stuff. And it's true. Like at the end of the day, it's meant to be heard in a certain sequence. And I was surprised when I met so many people who, whenever a new album would come out, they would wait and then they would listen to the whole thing on shuffle. It just seems backwards to me.
It's funny because like when I got into, the big iPods, now I'm going back there, but like the big iPod, 40 gigger, like, wow, I was dumping my entire library in it. And then I was so like.
The classic.
Yeah. And then I was so like, wow, I could shuffle this. But then it's like, I'm listening to it either on the way to work or on a walk or whatever. I'm listening to it and I'm like, all right, song's over. I know which song is supposed to come. And then it's random. And I was like, oh, it would turn me off, And I was like,
it's true.
I'm not ready for shuffle.
It's not supposed to be in that way. So now the question I think is, Joe, do you think that this is going to make a big noticeable shift or difference in how people consume music? Or do you think they're just going to play it in whatever order they want and maybe put in the extra effort to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think like, I know myself, like I press play, I want to hear the album in the order that's intended or that I'm used to because, we all have biases, right? So if you're used to something, then it's like, hey, why that song isn't coming? I know what to expect. But I mean, like, I found it funny that it was just like everywhere. It's all I saw this morning was Adele convinces Spotify. I know we've spoken about again, Taylor Swift making Apple, that was at least a serious move where this is like, whatever. I just found it was a little funny. I just wanted to bring that up.
It is a little odd. Crazy how Adele has harnessed the power to basically disappear out of the business for many, many years, come back and be arguably more relevant than she was in the beginning. I mean, for a pop star who's not, just brand new, 19 years old, fresh on the scene, for any artist, that's pretty rare and hard to do.
Yeah. I don't agree. I don't disagree is what I meant to say.
Well, you don't have to agree. No, it's crazy though. So I mean, hey, shout out to Adele, and more power to her if she can retain the relevance and have a say in the way that we consume music. I guess that's pretty cool.
Yeah. A
little bit of music news in the world of NFTs. Now, this is a pretty cool story. Some photos of 2Pac, to be exact, 18 photos from one of his early album release parties for 2Pacalypse Now are going to be released as NFTs by the photographer Lawrence Loopy D. Dotson. Now, this is a pretty cool story, Joe.
Well, I don't think you can not see NFTs like every 5 steps you take. You're going to see NFTs everywhere you go. It's pretty much taking, I don't know, the world by storm in terms of online, but like music for sure, like it's just the whole new rage. Everybody's releasing their albums as NFTs, which stand for non-fungible tokens. I'm not going to go too much into, like, I've been reading up on it a lot and learning about it, but I don't consider myself yet a person, I'm not like an influencer or someone who really can talk about it at length. But
finally, someone who's honest about that, by the way, because everybody's an expert nowadays.
No, I get
on
it.
NFTs.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I understand what it's about, and I'm excited about it because it's opens up a lot of things, right? Like, your tickets are going to be NFTs. Collector's items or anything you would be a collector's item is going to be NFTs. The thing is now everybody's just sort of like it's just like the wild west at this point. It's not like. It's anything could be done. People are selling stuff for exorbitant amounts of money. we'll see what the future holds. But I think this is all like part of where the web is going, Web 3.0. And it's, you know, from what I've read and been researching over the last couple of weeks, it's extremely interesting to me, the way it's sort of decentralized and not like, you know, one company, let's say like Google controls all of this or Spotify's controlling all of this. So with the NFTs is cool with the smart contracts. The idea is if you release an album as an NFT, well, and let's say there's like, you know, I don't know, 100 people that like, or thousands of people that will buy your NFTs. Well, they could become, depending on the artist and what they agree to, you could become royalty. You can like a royalty collector on that album, you know? So it's a good way, like, I see it like as a fun, like a crowdsourcing, another way of crowdsourcing, you know, but whereas the artist has complete control because he sold the NFT. So the person owns the only or one of 10 or however it is, one of 20 items. And it's directly with the consumer. So like, this is extremely interesting for me as an artist or for artists because let's say like you drop your album and all your information, all the collaborators on the albums is all listed in there, and with the percentages goes to here, this guy, you know, this, that. And what's cool about the smart contracts is they all get executed automatically. There's no one that says, oh, okay, you know, let's pay this guy. And, you know, you don't know if like, oh, did we collect like $20,000 but only paid him $2,000 kind of thing. It's like, it's just automated. So forever, you know, so that's the beauty of it. So like
no random processing fees that go to God knows who, you know.
No middleman, you know, it's all cut out. And that's what I was going to say is like, you know, PROs, which is performance rights organizations, are going to have to figure out like, or, you know, won't exist at a certain point, you know, because it's like everything is just taken care of in that smart contract. So it's like people are paid. No one can sort of, you know, screw anybody over kind of thing. So that's what I find extremely interesting about it.
Well, that's the question. I mean, I think that's the $1 million question right now. Do we think that this is going to remain decentralized? This is going to remain away from all these companies? Or do you think, Joe, that as this gets bigger, as this becomes a bigger, more established part of the marketplace, these companies are going to try to swoop in and take control like they do everything else? Do you think it can stay free?
It's already happening. Like you're already seeing Nike jump into the space. A lot of like, look, this guy's doing the, you know, Universal Music is doing stuff. Like there's lots of companies that are getting into the space. But it's like at the beginning of like when it was MySpace, Facebook, it was like there was so many social platforms, you know, and then like it ends up, you know, with 3 or 4, 5, 6, whatever, you know, we have
the biggest,
you know?
And best.
Yeah, but you know, it's because maybe by like human nature, we like to, you know, it's easy, it's simple, it's convenient, and it's fast, you know, whereas this seems to be a bit more of like, what am I getting? You know, it's harder. I find right now it's hard for the layman who doesn't understand what an NFT is to get in the game and understand, like, why would I pay for a JPEG? Why would I pay for this? You know, like these are all valid questions. But like, I think, you know, I'm really interested by the space, and I'm like, I want to learn, I want to get in and understand this stuff, you know, early on instead of having to catch up kind of thing. So this is why I'm like, you know, really like, I'm down the rabbit hole. It's like, it's endless, you know.
It's a good rabbit hole to be down because, again, it's the people who are really taking initiative to figure out what this is, who are going to be at the forefront of understanding this space. And I know that for all the independent artists out here watching this, definitely a good tip would be to just keep your eye on the next big thing. If you keep hearing about something and you're just annoyed by it and you're waiting for it to go away, chances are it's not going to go away. I mean, personally, I thought the same about Snapchat. And look where we are now in 2022 here coming up. So unbelievable. So we have a couple little on this day in music stories before we jump into this podcast. Now, this is pretty cool. We go all the way back to the UK on November 26th, 1976. The Sex Pistols released the single Anarchy in the UK. It was originally issued in a plain black sleeve. The single was the only Sex Pistols recording released by EMI, and reached number 38 on the UK singles chart before EMI dropped the group on January 6th, 1977. So a year later, just about, they got dropped. Or actually not even, just a few months later.
Yeah, and didn't we speak, like a couple episodes back, we spoke about something like that they were, like the drummer of the band, I forgot his name now, was like worried because like thought they were getting death threats or they could be, the death penalty, that's it. Even though the UK doesn't have the death penalty. But I'm just saying they were in trouble for this kind of, you know, putting out this kind of material, Anarchy in the UK, you know? So.
One of the most controversial bands of the time, but it's funny, a band that seems to have made such a big footprint in music with relatively few songs. I mean, it's not like you hear, a 20-song compilation of the greatest Sex Pistols songs. So it's wild to see how big of a statement, a few isolated incidents can make, just from looking at it. Going over to Russia on November 26th. This is in 1988. Russian cosmonauts aboard the Soyuz 7 took into space a cassette copy, minus the cassette box for weight reasons. We had to throw that in there.
Not even the original cassette. A copy.
Not even the original, exactly. Of the latest Pink Floyd album, Delicate Sound of Thunder, one of the more obscure records, and played it in orbit, making Pink Floyd the first rock band to be played in space. Now, David Gilmour and Nick Mason both attended the launch of the spacecraft, which probably made it a lot more special and sort of cathartic for them. I mean, what a cool thing.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Have your music played in space or be the first, And it's also Delicate Sound of Thunder was, because you said it was obscure, and it's obscure. It's like not an album that a lot of people think of, obviously, because it's the first one without Roger Waters. But yeah, like there's a couple of really good songs in that one, but it's definitely not like on the top of my Pink Floyd list, But,
it's weird with Pink Floyd. If it's not The Wall or Dark Side, all the other albums seem to sort of like, unless it's maybe Animals or Wish You Were Here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say those, like, obviously those are the staples, but Animals is my personal favorite, and like Wish You Were Here. It's hard. It's hard to pick between that and Wish You Were Here, but I'm leaning over to Animals by a little bit. But yeah,
I think the concept might give it that edge there for sure.
Yeah.
So now zooming back to 1968, we're gonna go back to Europe here. Cream played their farewell concert at the Royal Albert Hall in London. "Quote unquote farewell." Meanwhile, they've played plenty of shows since while the guys were alive. Also on the bill were Yes and Taste, which is a sick bill. The concert was filmed and released as Cream's farewell concert, which has often been criticized for both its mediocre sound and visual effects. During Ginger Baker's drum solo, he seems to change clothes at lightning speed due to careless post-editing. So I guess a couple shows stitched together?
Probably, or I don't know, but like I always find like live albums growing up as a young, music listener, I shied away from them because they always sounded crappy, didn't sound as good, or the performers weren't as good as the album, right? Because you can take your time and perfect your performance on the album. So I always had a bit of like to live albums, and this is some of the reasons why the cringy quality or whatever, some of the cheesy editing, the lighting wasn't as good. We're spoiled today with these high def. Today you see like I listen when a band drops a new live album, I always instinctively like, I'm not gonna listen to it. Then I listen to it like, holy cow, it sounds incredible now, and even like if you watch, let's say like some Coldplay stuff or stuff like, the more recent stuff, it's like, wow, it's super high def, so it's like I'm coming over to that live album side of things,
Totally. This was 68 that Cream put this record out. Do you think it would be fair to say that the live album wasn't revolutionized until Kiss with Alive in 75? Because it seems like ever since that point, that seemed to be the first live album that really, really hit.
I think so. I'm not sure, but I know that Rush, a personal favorite band of mine, like I think every 4 albums they release a live album.
True.
So that's what they do. They would do 4 albums, boom, live album. 4 albums, live album. So it's they do them for a reason, or they did them for a reason, right? They were releasing them for a reason, maybe as a way to, in between the next album, keep the fans interested a little bit longer. But yeah, live albums.
Yeah, it's good to see the stuff that they have now, the HD and the Blu-ray. It's really something else.
Well, can you imagine we were talking about Web 3.0. Can you imagine with the metaverse and stuff, like with VR? I wonder, wow, you could be everywhere and see the whole band, or maybe even just walk into on stage while the band is performing, like an AR or something. That would be interesting.
I have a feeling we're just getting started, and we're probably going to see many different variations of that, which will be really cool. So now we're going to jump into the main portion of the program. As we mentioned off the top, this is a collab with the Vox&Hops Podcast in Montreal. Shout out to Matt McGachy for having us on the show and sort of us having him on ours. I mean, look, this isn't really any specific show. As Joe mentioned, this is really a way to, this is sort of like SoundMojo after hours. It's really a way to get to know us better, hear us relax a little bit, talk about the whole experience. And this is really just one for our loyal, dedicated listeners out there who really care about the show and continue to support us. So let's jump into this, and we'll be back right after with a few takeaways. Ritualistic communion. Matt, thanks for having us, man.
No, I had to. It was just, I was watching, I grew up watching the lists, the WatchMojo lists, and then here it pops up on my socials. What's this? It's the same. It feels the same. It looks the same. SoundMojo, they have a podcast. I have a podcast, and it was cool that we hooked this up. So let's start with a very simple, how are you guys doing tonight? How you feeling? We're about to drink a beer together. We're going to talk about metal. You guys are going to ask me some questions. Let's just jump right in.
Awesome.
This is the way to do it.
I'm just glad to be here finally. Cause same as you, I've seen Vox&Hops, and then I'm like, okay, we started the Innersleeve. We're like, okay, let's see what happens. And then eventually oh, okay. And then you just hit us up and we're like, oh, let's do this together, man. Do a nice crossover.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I'd like to start these off with a shitty question to move into brighter territory as we keep going throughout the conversation. How did you guys cope with the glorious year of 2020 that is now lingered into 2021? And, we're almost at the end of 2021, but it sort of still feels a little bit like 2020, but a little bit better. So how did you guys cope with all that time?
I don't know.
You don't know? An honest answer. At least Joe's breaking the ice for us.
It's weird, eh? Because you get that vibe of it feels long, but yet it's like, wow, it's a blur, it just passed. Mm-hmm. And we lived it day by day, so I don't know, it's hard to just process it basically day by day. It was a bit rough last year, no shows, no events, and we were just getting started with SoundMojo to all right, let's go cover some events, do some shows, and no, right out of the gate, we just get blocked,
Yeah, it was a pretty hectic year. I mean, for me personally, this gig is actually what mostly got me through 2020. It started, I think, in the holiday season, right before it. And honestly, just being able to talk to people from all around the world, such as yourself, Matt, and all the other people we've talked to, that's really what personally kept me going, because it was that connection that we didn't have in the quarantine.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. True. How about you, Frank?
You know what? What's funny is that this morning I got on a call with our CEO, WatchMojo. We got onto weekly calls just to catch up, see how things are going. And the first thing he asked me was, did this year pass fast for you or was it slow? And I honestly... I think it just passed so incredibly quickly. I can't believe we're already in October. And I know some people will say, oh my God, no, I've been cooped up in my house or whatever the situation is. But for me, it really just passed so fast. And I can't believe we're already October, nearing 2022 already. I really can't.
It's unbelievable. It's especially running a podcast. It's like living week to week.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Episode to episode. Oh, I've been busy as goddamn hell. I've been working full time the whole time. At my day job, working as an early childhood educator, and the podcast has just been running the whole time. Going from during the pandemic, at the peak of the pandemic, when I was home, I was releasing 3 episodes a week, and then I cut down to 2 episodes a week, and now recently I've cut down to 1 episode a week, but I tend to still drop 2 episodes a week because that just sort of happens.
And if people don't realize, 1 a week is a lot. So 3 a week is insane.
Yeah.
I've been looking at how much time actually goes in from A to Z, from that first email, reaching out to try to book an interview, to the final social media post, let's say, and it's about 7 to 10 hours per episode that it takes for a Vox&Hops episode. So it's time consuming.
I believe it. Good on you.
Yeah, it's very time. It's sometimes I beat myself up for oh my God, am I taking too long? Am I taking too long to do this? Why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long?
We develop tricks as we keep going, though.
Yeah, that's it. It's like building the plane as you fly it.
Absolutely. Yes, especially.
That's our saying over here. That's our motto.
Yeah.
Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, typically talking about their life, music, and craft beer. Now, what beers are we going to be sharing virtually tonight?
Joe, go ahead and start.
All right, let's see. I've got two, but I'm going to show one. I'm not like a big beer drinker, more of a coffee guy, but I like beer, And I know that Vox and Hops is all about that. So I figured, let me just try this Cherry Bomb.
Yep.
You've obviously you're the pro, so I don't even know what this is. I think
what
it's cherry.
What is the brewery though? I can't remember what the brewery is.
Let's see if I can. My old eyes can see this. Brewery is La Souche.
That's correct. Yes,
yeah.
Very, very cool brewery from out there in Quebec, in the woods of Quebec. Yeah. They make killer beers. Awesome. Who else wants to go next? What else want to share?
I feel like a kid in class who forgot his homework because I actually don't have a beer on me at the moment.
That's perfectly fine.
Ever since my little mishap head injury, beer hasn't really been in my vocabulary. But I did want to give a shout out to one of my favorite micro breweries, or at least craft. You tell me if they're micro or not, but Alley Cat Brewers. Very good brewery.
Where are they located?
They're in Alberta.
Oh, okay. I do not know them, so they must be craft.
Well, just for the record, Cassius is from Alberta. That's why.
Oh, amazing.
This is it, yeah. The only reason I've heard of them, no. But, very good brand, and big shout out to them.
Amazing. How about you, Frank?
So for myself, funny story is that last week, Joe and we were at the studio at the WatchMojo headquarters, and we said, after we had finished, we said, let's go to this little craft or micro brewery dépanneur. Convenience store. And so Joe was right. We did buy the same Cherry Bomb, which it was a 50-50 shot, Joe, on which one I would open. And I did open the Cherry Bomb one. So we'll show that one again. Didn't know that one. Didn't know. Oh, you didn't open it? But then I've got this other cool one here. And while I was shopping, I didn't realize that I had purchased two beers that were kind of similar. But the artwork captivated me. So it's milkshake brown ale cherry flavored.
Look at you.
So
ship it over to Cassius.
It's Lenovo.
Yeah, just throw it over.
Yeah, so while I did open the Cherry Bomb, I have that other one on my desk here, so I'll be trying that one at least, maybe later on in the week. But that's what I got.
And Matt, I saw in one of your latest episodes you were telling the guest that somebody was drinking a bubbly sparkling water, so that redeemed him. So now you can tell the next guest somebody was drinking air. So there's no way it can get any worse than this. So there you guys go.
It's definitely not the first time. There's no stress, Cassius. On my side, I'm going to be drinking one of my brand new favorite breweries. This is from 5e Baron. If I can get that going there. 5e Baron, one of the, I feel like they're very underestimated. They can do everything right. This is their mixtape, and they do a series of mixtapes. It's a New England IPA, and they just changed the color of the mixtape. So they're really into hip hop and stuff like that, which is not metal, but I love them so darn much that I don't mind promoting them. And Jacob, their owner, is really cool. And this is 6.5% New England IPA, just killer. I'm going to crack this, and I would love to hear about your guys' first beers.
Ever?
Oh,
yes.
Sounds.
Oh man.
First beer. I'm old, bro. I don't care.
Oh man.
Mine was last week. I'm the young guy here. No.
I have a funny story. I think it must have been in high school. So in high school, I was probably 14, 15. A couple buddies and I had got together at a friend's house, and it was Pabst.
Yes.
Blue Ribbon, which is just like that teaches you. That
That's
teaches you a
first
lesson.
beer.
That one. That one teaches you a lesson from a young age. And so it was that one. And I remember that night, like we for some stupid reason, young kids, we didn't make logical decisions. And my friend's parents were out that night, and we decided not to throw the beer cans that we had consumed just in their recycling bin. We had decided to throw them else somewhere. And minors walking around with like a garbage bag with looking very suspicious. A police car strolls by, and they ask us, "What are you holding, and why are you doing this?" And so we got a little scared there. They were nice people, so they let us walk on our way. But it was a very silly decision, and that's a funny memory I had from a young age. So that was it. Yeah, Pabst, though, to answer your question. Yeah,
Joe.
Joe, do you remember that first beer?
No, I remember probably very young because I did not like it at all. Like I didn't like. I'm not an alcohol guy. I had to like where you sort of force yourself and then you end up liking it. So I remember getting old, like, in my 20s, I still, like, I'd have that one beer all night at the show. Like a one beer, right? And it gets hot and it's disgusting. So it makes it even worse.
And worse, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like,
cheaper,
why do people
but
do this? I'd be like, why do people do this? And then, you go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a couple months later, next thing you know, like, wow, this is my fifth beer in like an hour or so. Like, what's going on over here? So that's pretty much my story.
That's hilarious. I think for me, I had tried a little sip. Like, I think most parents would maybe give you a little sip when you're 13 on New Year's or whatever. But the first beer I actually sat and had was at a party a friend of mine was having in the East Coast. And he was so excited that he had Budweiser. He was like, we have the king of beers. This is the best beer because it says it on the can. And I was like, wow, this is the real deal. So yeah, I remember having that and sort of choking it down and trying to be one of the boys that night. So it was pretty funny.
That's
Matt,
amazing.
yourself?
Well, I've spoken about it a lot on my pod. My first beer was a Lucky Lager. It doesn't exist anymore. I was at a house party in high school. We ravaged my poor friend's house because his mother was out of town and she was a very sweet woman and we shouldn't have done that. But it was lots and lots of fun. And I, if I could teleport myself back there and relive it again, I would most definitely do that. Cheers for hanging out.
Cheers.
Raise your glass of air. And
Cheers.
Cheers. This is great. This is a super fruity, juicy, like tropical fruits. Not bitter whatsoever. Really awesome, amazing. Second bottle.
I can smell it from here.
This is cool too. Like, I was expecting more cherry, and it's not. It's more.
It's like a
beer.
red ale.
Yeah, I like it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Let's dance
good.
into music. I'd love to hear about the soundtrack of your youth when you're growing up. When you're growing up in your parents' or guardians' house, what music was playing when you were not in control of the music? What music did your parents or guardians listen to?
Wow, that's a good one.
Oldest first, Joe?
I guess. Well, growing up Portuguese, downtown Montreal in the Plateau, before it was the Plateau, I was exposed to, Portuguese folklore, fado, as they call it, and and also like marching band. I even played very young. I played the clarinet and French horn in like Portuguese like marching band where we would do like the feasts down around the church over there. That's pretty much, before I got into control of things.
Frank, Cassius.
I've got, I don't know, growing up because my grandparents, I'm very lucky to still live next door to my grandparents, and I've been doing so for a while. And my grandfather is just crazy for music. I mean, music was his career. He was an accordionist. He had his own orchestra as well, or band, I should say. And he predominantly operated in the wedding scene in Montreal. That's what he was most known for. And anyways, when I was a young kid, I was always over at their house, and there was a lot of more classical, I guess, music playing. Like there was always the Rat Pack, there was always Louis Armstrong, there was the Four Aces. I don't know if you
No.
Yeah, I think they were more of a local band. But anyways, my grandfather had a bunch of music playing all of the time. So I guess you could say I grew up on older style music. And yeah, that's a little brief summary of my end as well. Cassius, how about you?
This is great, Matt, because you're letting me get to know my coworkers here better. This is stuff I didn't know at all. This is great. For
We're
me,
more like just get to work, less talking. That's what we.
Yeah, exactly. We're whipping each other. Seriously,
it's a magic question. I ask it for a reason because you can find out something about your guests when they were young, which brings out a vulnerability,
right?
And also you can find out what their youth was like. Did they grow up in a broken home? That was it their brother that showed them more stuff because their dad was always out drinking. It's like a secret key lock into memories that really opens up. And there's a reason why I ask specific questions, and that one is definitely why. Cassius.
Well, don't steal my answer because that was my answer. No, but actually, it was so eclectic growing up in my household. We would always have music, especially in the car, no matter where we would go. Anything from gospel to Warren Zevon to Marvin Gaye to Kiss, Iron Maiden. It was always just playing. And I remember my dad would play he would even play like Eminem albums and stuff and hip hop albums, but whenever they had cuss words, he would turn it down and then he'd turn it back up. So like,
But he
it
had
was
them
like his own
memorized.
bleeps. Yeah, pretty much. He loved it. So
Instead
I
of
was
the
exposed to a lot.
DJ blurring out the swear words.
Yeah, my
from
dad
just
had
your
turntables in the front seat, the whole deal. It was amazing.
Sounds safe.
Yeah.
Amazing. Let's dance straight into this SoundMojo. Now, why did WatchMojo feel like it needed a label, something else, a sister channel, a brother channel, a second venture? At what point did they realize that there was no more content for them to remake into top 10 lists?
Well, I know that WatchMojo always covered music, top 10 music, top 10, whatever. But they always got it always gave them the most pain, right? With the labels claiming copyright claims
Absolutely.
and stuff like
Hell
that.
yes.
That
So
and
when they
sports,
realized,
tough ones.
yeah, and they realized it's 95% of our hassle is music related claims that we have to figure out and whatever, but it was like very 5% of what the generated actual views, and so they wasn't worth it for them. So they basically put a stop on it, and what they grew, what they became known as WatchMojo for pop culture. So then fast forward, a little bit more successful, a little bit stronger, more people. They're like, let's get back into music a little bit, right? But Ash, CEO, had the idea of starting a label to help support indie artists and get them expose them to the audience of WatchMojo, which is 24 million subscribers, 150 million views per month, all that stuff, all that crazy stuff. So that's great. When I heard that, I was like, man, where do I sign? How do I get me in this thing? And within 30 seconds of us getting on the phone, first time I've ever spoken to him, we were talking about Ozzy Osbourne, within 30 seconds, and all that stuff. So right off the bat, okay, we're dealing with someone who loves music and is for music and to help, because they're not, at this point, they're, putting all these resources into this and not asking, we're not charging bands or anything. It's just let's build the channel, SoundMojo, build a brand. And also at the same time, I hate to use the exposure word, but in this case, it actually is exposure because you are being exposed to videos where it's just 200, 300, 700,000 views, right? And you have a little 20-second spot in there,
Ah, yes. That's really cool. And then they don't have to pay the rights for it because they own the rights to it.
Well, actually, we cut a really artist-friendly deal. When I got there, it was clean slate, So I put together the idea of artists don't need a label anymore at this point. They need money, right? Or they need help, like I said, exposure and all that. But I said, let's put something together where they give us license to monetize it on SoundMojo, and whatever comes in from that, we split 50-50 with them. It's non-exclusive, so they can take that same video and put it on other promo websites or whatever, or on their own YouTube channels. For us, it's non-exclusive, so I think it's really cool. It's artist-friendly deal. Coming from an artist background myself, it's you don't really lose, you actually gain. And if you think about it, once you're in that video, it's like it being in a movie. It's for perpetuity. You're always going to be promoted constantly, as long as that, if that video is evergreen, it's always going to be promoting.
Absolutely. I completely understand and agree with that.
I found it was a really cool, unique way to sort of help out, build a brand and also get WatchMojo back into music and also help indie artists. Because nobody, Beyonce's and all that, they don't need the help at all. So who needs the help is, guys like us, where we have these, it's super talented musicians, artists and bands, and now you have a real audience to that can listen to your stuff and discover you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's super interesting too, because I know that WatchMojo beginnings, they would go and actually do interviews at shows here in Montreal, and then SoundMojo was going to basically pick up where that left off, right? And then the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit.
Hits, a nice big spoke in the wheels,
But yet a podcast was born out of it.
Yeah. The podcast, well, that's Frank. I shall let Frank go because that's pretty much Frank came in to establish the WatchMojo podcast network.
Right. So going back around, I guess, a year and a half ago, I emailed out of the blue. I wasn't part of the company. And I had emailed the CEO out of the blue just because he had put out a tweet. He's like, hey, you know what? If you're interested in something, find my email out there on the internet, and email me. So I did that, gave him a bit of my background. At first, I really didn't go to him specifically for, hey, I think you should maybe consider doing podcasts. It was more of I was brought on as an intern role, doing a bit of support work for him and what he needed. And it kind of branched out into, hey, why don't you just, start from scratch, build, take our graphic designers, get creative, build some logos, gather some talent, aka Cassius, and others, of course, but Cassius for this podcast, this recording, and have fun with it. And we felt like SoundMojo definitely, when you look at the family tree of WatchMojo and you look at all the channels, so you have Miss Mojo, Mojo Espanol, WatchMojo UK, all that, they follow the same content strategy arc as the main channel, right? Which is top 10s, top 20s, whatever the case may be. SoundMojo doesn't. No. And so we said a nice complementary feature to the channel would be to show off a bit more of our internal voice and start a weekly show. And that's kind of how we ran with it. And we kind of thankfully stumbled upon Cassius's email, pursued that a little bit, and boom, there you go.
Excellent. Let's let Cassius take up at that moment too. So yeah. you sit down at your computer, you open your phone, I imagine, really, and there's an email sitting there. What was your mindset? Because I got a lot of emails. Sometimes I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is what is this person
Frank's mindset?
What does this person want from me?
Is this our email to Cassius or Cassius to ours?
Because he reached out to you. Is that or
at first? Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then when they responded, so you pick up the story there.
Okay, yeah. So, I originally saw the posting on the WatchMojo community tab, and it was just really spoke to me. It said if you love music and you love podcasting, this is the job for you, basically. So I immediately, was like talking to my family and stuff, putting together like the right email, put it together. And to be quite frank, I never expected to get an answer back. Obviously a company with so many subscribers, you would think, oh, they have so many emails, it's never even going to get seen. Then one day I was walking to like the store or something, and it was freezing cold out, like a snowstorm here, because of course Alberta is the worst. And I'm looking at my phone and I see an email from Frank through the winter friggin' cold, and I remember I was like having a little celebration there in this parking lot in the friggin' -30 because I got an email from WatchMojo. So yeah, we just kept going from there. And similar to what Joe's experience was, I got on a call with these two and then with our CEO Ash, and then again within 5-10 minutes we're talking Van Halen, we're talking Def Leppard. So I obviously felt comfortable right off the top,
Yeah, Sorry, I was just going to say from the get-go, we told Cassius, it's not like you're being hired for this. This is like you're part of the podcast, like it's your ideas, my ideas, Frank's ideas. So much so that like the theme music, Frank found the theme music and I keep getting compliments nonstop. Dude, I love that theme music. I love that theme. I'm like, yeah, great, So anyways, it's just like a really team effort,
It's better that than, hey, get rid of that theme music. Jesus.
Yeah, this is true. All of this which caught me off guard too, because again, such a big company, you have these negative assumptions about a big company, like, oh, they're just going to write you a script and they're just going to give it to you and you probably won't even meet the people who are higher up. And it was such a pleasant surprise because that is often the case, as I think Joe was going to say. Yeah,
not to gush even more about WatchMojo, but like, I've been through a few kind of, not ran a radio station, but I was head of production of radio for like 10 years and stuff. And, when you see someone say something online or say something in an email, your boss tells you something and then you're always like, yeah, whatever, we'll see if the proof's in the pudding. But like, I've been living it through the pandemic and through when SoundMojo started. And I've seen that like what they say, they do, and I'm super appreciative of that, So it's like, it's fun to be a part of this team, very collaborative.
It sounds amazing. Cassius, did you have any experience podcasting before jumping into the Innersleeve?
Yeah, I honestly have been podcasting since I was like 10 years old.
Wow.
I started
just
really
about
young.
two years ago.
Yeah, just about 2 years. Yeah. Hey, I'm 10 and a half. No. But yeah, I just started doing it and I've been doing it ever since. And it's always been, honestly, I find all those years were really working up to something like this. Like if you could have told me a dream job, I couldn't have even said it would be as good as this. Because think about it, when you're in school and even when you're doing your dream jobs in school, no one would think maybe you could find a super cool YouTube channel and make awesome content that you'd really enjoy. They just tell you, oh, you can go be a firefighter or whatever. So yeah, incredibly grateful for sure.
Very, very interesting. What would be some of the biggest challenges when it comes to running this podcast? What would be some of the things that makes it less fun?
Views. I was just dropping that waiting for that silent drop and just let me do it. Challenges is I want to do like you, 3 a week, 2 a week. We have we're sitting on a few, we're like trying to organize things, and it's like I want to pump out a lot more content because SoundMojo has so many different things. Like we had so many, I still have them, so many ideas of stuff we want to do. It's just like time, right? It's just always a matter of time. We want to talk about like documentaries, biopics. We did one this summer, and the cover events as well. Maybe some live streams or like, actually put on. One of the ideas we had was with Ash and Heavy MTL, which is like to have a side stage of like, SoundMojo artists or local artists where it's like, here's a SoundMojo stage and like maybe have some WatchMojo people there also, hey, people recognize, oh yeah, I know you guys, this and that. So it's like sort of like get WatchMojo into the community even more. Yeah.
Very, very cool. So I always love asking this question whenever I'm with fellow podcasters is, has there been an interview that you would love to redo because it got away from you?
Well, I know that Cassius handles a lot more of the interviews than we do. We sit on a few, but we leave him as the main on-screen talent. Cassius, do you have any in mind?
I think I've been pretty lucky with these ones. The only time that sometimes I wish I could have done it better is if it's like super, super early in the morning or super, super late at night. Those are the only times where it's like when I watch it back, it's very challenging for it to be as good as a regular time because the people who usually do 6 a.m. radio or whatever are doing it every day. So that's the only times where I sort of kick myself like, oh, I wish my face was moving at that point. I didn't look half dead. So yeah.
I have one regret of Innersleeve because I haven't done that many podcasts, but Innersleeve was that I didn't participate when Daniel Lanois was on. You know what I mean? Because I was being a huge fan of Daniel Lanois, and then he called Cassius brother,
little brother, yeah,
little brother. And I'm like, oh my god,
I want to be called little brother, not Cassius. I want to
some U2s and like some of the greatest like recordings. Peter Gabriel. I mean, it's like, come on, man, and he called him little brother.
He's like, I'm the Lanois fan around here. I am the fan.
Honestly, like I think for us as a small team of 3 guys, I think I'm pretty proud of the names that we've got on the show. Like
extremely, yeah.
Like you mentioned Daniel Lanois. Even surprisingly enough, the one like a fan favorite, Chris Holmes.
Yeah, man, that was hilarious.
I'm blanking. Obviously, Steve Stevens was great. I'm blanking though, guys.
Guar.
Help me out here. Oh yeah, Guar was hilarious.
Miles
Guar
Kennedy.
Awesome. Oh my god. Oh yeah, Miles Kennedy.
Did you break through? Miles Kennedy, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you break through with Guar, or did they stay in character the whole time?
Man, I tried so hard. I tried playing into their humor. I tried asking them in creative ways. But listen, the one cool part though was that I got on the call with them as they were setting up. So the guy had his helmet off and he was like just talking to me in a normal voice. That was a trip for sure. Really weird.
I was very lucky. I toured with them, so
wow, look at that.
We knew each other off stage, so
that's
I
badass.
had a little bit of an inner way into them.
So like guts thrown on you type of thing, that intimate with them, or how?
No, my guitarist's wife, who was handling merch on the tour, was thrown into the crusher grinder under the drum set in Vancouver at the Commodore Ballroom, though. That did happen. But I can still remember the smell of a Guar show, that's rubber, funny. That rubber smell.
You're the second person to tell me that they smell, or it smells. When you go.
It has an interesting. It doesn't smell bad. It has an interesting smell. It's not like playing with Watain, because that smells like dead creatures. So
it's more of a musk, a Guar musk.
I'd rather smell the Guar smell than a Watain smell anytime. Speaking of metal. Let's talk about metal. Let's talk about, if you're metalheads, extreme metalheads, Vox&Hops is obviously an extreme metal podcast. So talk to me about, you've mentioned a few key names so far throughout the conversation that you are metalheads, but talk to me about if you are metalheads and what metal means to you, if you've ever been in a mosh pit. What is probably the most metal experience you've ever lived through?
I grew up metal, from the age of 9. I mean, the first album I got, well, it wasn't metal, but was Motley Crue's "Shout at the Devil," which was like, I was 9 years old. Like that's what, grade 3, and I'm listening to this And I was like, wow. And I killed that cassette, like, because it was a cassette back in the day, right? I killed that thing like crazy. And that just was the gateway to everything else, right? I went through all the hair stuff. The Screaming Queensryche was like a big influence. And I got into the prog metal. That was like Dream Theater and like all the Swedish metal stuff. Like the heaviest the most extreme I enjoy is Meshuggah, which is
hell yeah,
about as hard as I'm going to get, but
it's pretty hard.
Yeah, but like Opeth as well is big, like the older stuff and even the newer stuff. So yeah, metal I've been around in and around it.
I'm sure we've been to the same shows. It sounds like.
Yeah.
You guys probably have been in Montreal, yeah.
Yeah.
Unreal. You're getting me thinking now. The guys that I really look up to are a lot of the classic metal groups. So they're boring, vanilla answer of Sabbath, of Slayer, of Dio. Which is not boring for
Slayer's
metal.
never boring.
Never definitely not. And probably the most metal experience. Yeah, the most metal experience I've had, probably shooting some of these concerts. I remember at the Slayer concert, I was taking pictures and they dropped their curtain, and then the guys, how the guys carry the curtain away, all the roadies. So their curtain caught my camera case and ripped it off my neck. So then I see it going, they're stuffing the curtain away, and I'm trying to tell these guys, you guys have my camera case in the curtain, and they're like, what are you talking about?
Like,
so yeah, just trying
off.
to.
It's like trying to get backstage.
Yeah, they're like, we're Slayer's roadies. We don't care. So yeah, it was hilarious, man. Some crazy times in those pits too.
Yeah.
Crazy.
How about you, Frank?
I hate to break it to you, Matt. Not the biggest metalhead. There's actually a joke, inside joke running that like Frank doesn't know all that much about music. Period. But
youngin.
Yeah, I'm very much like a novice, but like to the point where there's so many subgenres. Like I get so confused all the time. So I don't even know what metal is. Like
metal's an attitude.
Metal's an attitude.
Exactly.
Sure, okay.
I was going to ask you that. I actually had that as a question to put down. Like, I grew up with all the metal, prog, rock, prog, all that stuff, right? Extreme metal, technical death metal. It's like, why do we feel this need to really niche down into everything? What do you think?
I think it's a precious little treasure that they want to keep to themselves.
So like they're the kings of this subgenre.
Yes, and everything is like classified, and it's like the uber nerdism that goes into being a music enthusiast. So something that is yours, something that belongs to you, and then you discover other people that also enjoy that. It becomes like your own little crew of people that love this similar thing. It's a culture thing. So I think it's super interesting. But the older I get, it's always just music is music, metal is metal. It's a huge umbrella, exactly. that covers so many things. And it's because metal is an attitude.
So I've got a question for you then, because when you said metal, I know that Joe, Cassius, and yourself, you kind of lean towards like Sabbath, Slayer. Was Maiden mentioned as well? Or?
No one
for
has
me
mentioned
at least.
Maiden as of yet.
Okay. Well,
no.
Yeah, not yet.
Will I mention them? I don't know. Will I mention? No. But when like a bit more modern name that came to mind, and you tell me if this is true metal or not. But like Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, like are those metal, or what kind of category are they in?
I think they're more in the hard rock segment. I have a funny story about 3 Days Grace that I'll tell you right now. I was in a band called 3 Mile Scream before I was in Cryptopsy, and we had applied to play the Mudvayne gig when they were touring. What was that CD? Not Falling. They played Club Soda. And
I saw that show. I was there.
With the Strobes. It was insane. And the agent calls, or my bassist at the time, Mike Marino, calls, and he hears or sees an email sent, and the guy didn't really know who was opening for them, and he says, "Oh, I don't know, it's 3 something." So he's like, "Oh shit, we got the Mudvayne gig, and he tells all of us, and we're all super excited, and then he gets another message from the dude, and he's like, "Oh no, it's 3 Days Grace," and that's the first time I had ever heard about 3 Days Grace. So
same here.
They started.
Like I didn't know who they were, and I saw them open up, and next thing you know, they're on radio everywhere. I'm like, where does this band come from? Like I didn't know them yesterday, and within the next week, because I obviously went for Mudvayne, but like they were okay, I guess, nothing wrong there.
I had a bit of a grudge.
Yes. For sure. Rightly so. I get it.
3 days long.
Yeah, 3 days grudge.
Let's talk about Montreal. Cassius, I don't know if you've ever visited here, but I am curious about your experience with Montreal, everyone, why there is such a vibrant music scene. I have my answer for this because I get asked this question very frequently when I'm on tour. But why do you think there is so many artistic things coming out of Montreal? Amazing things, having SoundMojo started label, and there's probably a bunch of artists from Montreal on the label. Talk to me about Montreal music and why that is.
I don't know why it is. I just know I've always known Montreal, being born and raised here, and being a part of the scene as well as a guitar player in prog metal bands, and doing shows all over the town. But I don't know, but it's true, I've always noticed and it's not only in one discipline, right? We're known in every discipline. Yeah, from EDM to metal to rock to indie stuff. So it's I don't know why, man. It's not something I could put my finger on, but
it's not a cookie cutter town, though. It's it's a metropolis. So with that comes diversity, and there's just so much out there. And I know you're talking just from general arts standpoint, right? Not necessarily.
Yes. Typically, I would focus in on the metal part of it, but it really spans into all aspects of art.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's a tough question to really nail. But I think it's just a super liberal city that has an audience for everything. And a lot of things are born here. And, then people move on and maybe head to other meccas for whatever industry they're in. But a lot of it, I know, random, when you were saying the arts, the random thought unrelated to music, that my girlfriend and I watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, right? And there's a huge drag race scene in Montreal. A lot of the big names in that industry who make it big to New York and to wherever, they've started here. There's drag shows here. It's quite remarkable, and that just goes to it piggybacks on what you said. Just extremely diverse in many different fields. So, yeah, we're lucky for it. It keeps us
even comedy, right?
Absolutely huge.
It's huge. Art, a jazz. Look, we have a jazz fest, man. One of the most widely known around the world, right?
Yeah.
Cirque du Soleil. It's.
Yeah, it is insane how much stuff is there. My best guess as to why that is would be maybe more availability, maybe more / better bars and clubs to play. I know that there's great schools out there. I know some of our people at WatchMojo, especially our CEO, does stuff with Concordia. So I'm thinking there's more of a crossover between just general living and the arts in Montreal. That's my hypothesis. And to answer your question about visiting, I did visit, but it was on a school trip where I was taped into my hotel room. So at night. So
okay.
Also 2 years ago.
Yeah, also that was 1 year ago.
Hilarious. Now, if you could do the Innersleeve, I love collabs, right? So my brain is always thinking about making new beers. Just this past summer, I released 22 beers for a project called Vox&Hops Brutal North America, where I paired past guests of the podcast, the Vox&Hops alumni, with metal breweries from across North America. 22 of the collabs came out. I love making collabs. So if you could make an Innersleeve beer, what style of beer would it be, and what would you call it?
Ooh, wow.
Definitely would have to have something with Frank Zappa for me. Some hot rats.
Just a big mustache on the can.
Rat Motel, or some weird title like that. That's for sure. Maybe Rat Motel would be something cool, or 200 Motels. I think
sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Hot Rats is a great album.
Hot Rats.
Oh my god, man!
So
I would want to.
Can you repeat that? Actually, is it an Innersleeve themed beer?
Yeah,
it'll be your own beer. Basically, you would team up with a brewery, and you and the brewer would sit down together, and you would tell them, "I want you to make this style of beer," and then you design a label, and you have a name on the label, and it's your beer.
I know I'd like something with just enough hops. I like hops, but I don't like it when it's overkill. So I'd like something that a lager guy could drink and a hops guy could drink, personally.
An IPL, an India Pale Lager, maybe.
There you go, mixing up the game.
I have no clue. I have no clue.
What's a Kilkenny style beer?
That's like an Irish cream ale.
That's it. Yeah. So that I would go something along those lines,
It's really hard to do those in cans because of the widget, the little plastic ball in it that's been patented by Guinness, and I believe they are ran by the same brewery. So they don't let any other breweries release beers with the little widget in it to get that cream foaminess.
Frothy,
Exactly. That
Interesting.
Wow,
tap pour.
I love it. I'm going to bed. It's like you're supposed to learn something new every day. This is it.
You guys both drank like a Family Guy episode at the exact same
Why
time.
talking about crypto, man? We got to talk about this beer technology, man.
Fair enough.
I typically wrap up with one last question. It's a classic Vox and Hops wrap-up question. It's probably doesn't happen to you guys very often because you're very busy. You seem to be mature and in control of your lives, but every once in a while it happens to everyone. What are your hangover cures?
Never
Okay.
drinking again.
Yeah, I was just saying that, the mantra. Chicken noodle soup.
Anything, though. Chicken
You know
noodle
what?
soup.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, something warm. Those heat packs, are always useful. But I think it's
More
just
beer also helps. No.
Yeah. Strangely
Just-
enough.
absolutely
actually good.
hating yourself is the cure to overcoming this. Like, I don't know. I think I've been scarred from the last couple times. Okay, I'll tell you a funny story. Actually, last time I got since that point I've never gotten a true hangover, which I'm thankful for. I was in Las Vegas in Las Vegas and hangovers. I'm sure people aren't strangers
Enough
to
said.
that. Yeah, but 2018, I want to say. And first of all, we were at this club and like the prices there are just ridiculous. Like we're talking about
Mortgage.
yeah, your mortgage for a 1.5 liter bottle. Okay, so we go up to the bartender and we're like, okay, how much is a bottle? Base bottle, nothing. We're not asking for anything special, any type of fancy liquor. 1.5K USD for a bottle.
For like a Smirnoff bottle or something?
For a Smirnoff, yeah, exactly.
Oh
vodka.
my.
Wow.
1.5. So we're like, okay, that's out of the question. How much? Maybe we can get a bit more bang for our buck. How much is a shot? $85 USD.
Oh my God.
Anyways, we felt like the most value purchase was $20 Bud Lights
Yes.
or something like that, like the tall cans, right?
Unbelievable.
And yeah, it's pretty wild. And I swear I had like 2 or 3 knocked out. I felt like I got something was slipped in there. I couldn't
Yeah, I was
believe
about
that
to
2
say,
or
yeah.
3, and it was bad. Like I had the whole night. It just hit me like a rock, and I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
But honestly, a hot shower.
That
If
does
you're
help a
asking
little
for
bit.
remedies,
That's
like
cool.
Yeah.
maybe not completely cure it, but it'll at least help for maybe 45 minutes.
You need a sauna. That's what you need at the hotel.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sweat it all out.
That would be good. Yeah. How about you, though, Matt?
I suffer in silence. I am
Just
a,
one.
a father of 2 young children, so it's not their fault. They're not the ones that drank the beers.
man, good
If I could, and if I have it in the fridge, I'll drink a fruited sour, which is a sour based beer, is like a kettle sour, which is like a very tart, typically 5 to 7% base beer, and then they pump it with a bunch of fruit puree. So it's like it's like a smoothie, super thick, a little bit tart. So you're getting your fruit and you're getting a little bit of booze, and then I drink a cup of coffee with it. And I was talking to the boys from Pub Brewski here in Montreal about my hangover cure. When I asked them, they turned the table on me, and then they were like, that sounds like a good idea. And then we made Brutal Juice, which is one of my beer collabs that came out. It was I think it was 8.5% coffee. It was Zab coffee that was in it. It was really delicious with dark berries. It looked like blood. It was amazing. Yeah.
Wow, man. That's some heavy stuff. That's the closest I've gone to going on a diet, drinking a smoothie like that. That's 8%. Usually fail.
Was just curious to know like how like why Vox and Hops. Obviously now that I know you're a huge beer fan, but like how did you guys get that going?
I was home for a year. I took a year off to stay home with my then 18-month-year-old daughter. My wife went back to work. I stayed home for a year. Being in Montreal, and we do not watch much screens with my children. In the winter months, it gets dark really early here. I got like really bored fast in the afternoons because it was like many hours before my wife would come home. So I started listening to podcasts. I had been a guest on the Jasta show, which is like a huge podcast ran by Jamie Jasta of Hatebreed. So I started listening to that one first because I knew it, and I just got addicted to the format. I moved on to the X-Men with Doc Coyle. He was in God Forbid. I had played with God Forbid. Now he's in Bad Wolves. Listened to a lot of his stuff. Started listening to Off Camera with Sam Jones, and I just really enjoyed his interview technique because he actually listens versus speaking and monologuing the whole time, which a lot of podcasters tend to do. And I just fell in love with the format. I went to dinner with my wife, who is now the producer of the podcast. Shout out to Jessica. She is really the person that always takes my ideas and then makes them better. So that night, the name was born, the concept was born. I was gonna sit down with my friends. It was supposed to just be singers and talk about their vocals and performing vocals and drinking a craft beer. It was basically like, comedians in cars getting coffee, except it was musicians in bars drinking craft beer.
Yeah.
Was really my elevator pitch before I had an elevator pitch for Vox and Hops. And then I very, very quickly realized that just doing Vocalist really would constrain me to the amount of guests that I can get. So I immediately, my first guest was actually a guitarist, and one of my closest friends, Danny Marino from The Agonist, known him for ever. So it was an easy conversation. I was super nervous when I was sitting down to record that first interview. I was at his house, and he looked at me and he went, "Dude, you've played Vakken. It's like, you can do this." And I was like, okay, you're right. So then we recorded and it went well, and I recorded 10 interviews, and I started releasing episodes in October 2018, and I'm just about to release my 300th episode coming up in the next few days. So 300 episodes in just about 3 years. It's been running good. It's a passion project. I really, really enjoy having conversations with people. The first 100 episodes were just my friends. And then eventually publicists got wind of what I'm doing, and I basically have to tell them I can't do their interviews anymore because I'm just too booked. But that's what I'm
talking about, man. It's huge. I did want to know from you, because obviously you have a lot of experience. What is the king of craft beers, in your opinion?
Oh, the specific beer? That's difficult. I think the beer that changed the most on the scene here in Quebec, I can talk about that, because I can't really talk about the world because I don't really live there. I'm pretty much very well versed in what's happening here in Quebec. The beer that changed a lot for a lot of breweries here was Boreal du Nord-Est from Boreal. When that hazy, milky beer, basically very much like this one, came onto the market, everyone was freaking out and waiting in line at Boreal. And Boreal is not a microbrewery. They're a microbrewery because they're not owned by Labatt or anything like that, or Molson, but they are still a very big brewery that makes beer that is available everywhere in every bar. When I started playing shows with 3 Mile Scream, when I got my little drink coupons at Sapphire, I don't know if anyone remembers Sapphire, I would cash in my coupons to drink Boreal, and I would, getting used to drinking it. So this beer came out, Boreal du Nord-Est, and it's in New England. It was one of the first ones. There was probably 2 or 3 at the same time that dropped, but this one was the most. People freaked out. So I still think that if it wasn't for that beer, the hazy craze here in Quebec wouldn't be as advanced as it is now, because basically every brewery is killing it with the haze now.
Interesting, man. I got to get down to Quebec because it sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff.
I remember I used to work at a dépanneur, as we say here, as a kid, and like beer is just like, it's crazy, man. Hockey and beer,
Hockey and beer.
And music, obviously, because we have so much talent over here. I remember, actually, it's a funny story. I remember working, it was Jarry, on Jarry Street, near the metro. And like, I'd be doing, stocking up the beer, stocking up the fridges. And then right behind me, all of a sudden it's coming down here, big boots walking, turn around. And it's like, it's Piggy from Voivod. I was like,
no way.
Dude, you're buying beer here. Amazing, So that was a cool little story.
He was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, or Matt specifically, have you been to the what's it called? The Steam Whistle Brewery in Toronto?
I have not, but I know the name well, and it actually, I feel like they have started distributing into Quebec now.
it's kind of got a Saint Ambroise vibe.
Okay.
If you know what I mean. Like nice, open, resto / obviously you get your beer there and they make it all in-house and it's a really good vibe. So I was there this summer, gave it a go, and I really enjoyed it. So if ever, I know that wasn't necessarily what we were talking about, but it came to mind that if you're ever in Toronto, I'd recommend going there for sure.
Absolutely. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Pretty good beer too.
Ontario has a vibrant scene, very, very vibrant scene. There's like way more breweries in Ontario than Quebec. It's like actually insane.
Well,
Next level.
Huge province, right?
That's
crazy. The population is bigger. I also want to know, like, going back to music, like, how did you like get started in music screaming? Because like you must know obviously Justin from Fane, the local band Fane.
Yeah,
we had him on the show the other day, and he gave us a tutorial, like a master class on screaming, right, and vocals and stuff like that. And I've always been like, I've always been into like the singers like Dickinson and like Halloween. I was a huge Halloween fan when I was a kid. But like I don't know, I'd be at like Cité 2000 like listening, and like you have these bands next to us going, rah, rah, and I was, at the time we were stupid young kids. We think, oh, well, they're using effects and stuff. But then when you actually sit there and you watch the guy, I was recording in studio, and I'm like, all right, let's get the levels, and this guy's going, rah. I'm like, where your effects? Like, there's no effects, dude. It's like this guy's, it's his real voice, So I'm just curious to know like how you got started in the whole scene.
I've always wanted to be a singer. I really grew up learning music in my dad's car, listening to Journey. He was like a pure 80s hair metal. Loves it. The Black Album was in constant rotation. Bon Jovi. So I always wanted to be a singer, a clean singer. So I imagined my whole life wanting to step up onto stage and be a singer. And a funny anecdote is that when I was really young, there was a talent show. I'm from Two Mountains, which is outside of Montreal, next to Saint Eustache, and it used to have a very big English population. Now it's more francophone, and that's cool. But I tried out for a talent show, and I was in grade 7, and the song that I chose was Meatloaf. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Now, if you know this song and you imagine a 13-year-old child singing the lyrics of it, it's extremely inappropriate. And I kudos to my parents for letting me to do it, but they could have also helped me get into the talent show by letting me choose a song that had a bit more child appropriate lyrics. I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna need you, so don't feel bad because 2 out of 3 ain't bad, or something like that.
The teachers have their eyebrows raised.
Totally. So I didn't get into that, but shout out to Mrs. Cocking, who ran the plays at LTM with my high school that I went to. She was actually one of the judges at that, and she came up and found me and said, you can really sing, you should join the plays, which I did. And then our first play was Oliver, and I was one of the orphan boys, and then I just kept doing bigger and bigger parts until I was in my graduating year, and I got like one of the main leads of the villain and stuff. So that was super fun and formative, and learning to sing with Mr. Schenk in the piano room was really the formative years of me learning how to sing. Mrs. Cocking, again, shout out again. There was this band, they were super cool, they were a grade older than me, but the singer was horrible, and she was like, you should sing for them. And then about 4 months later, I ended up singing for this band, and that was my first band. Funny story there, we were covering Faith by Limp Bizkit, and I got to the point of the get the fuck up, and the guitarist stopped, and he made me apologize to his mother, who was upstairs.
Should have turned it down like my dad in the car. Just unplugged the mic for a second.
So it just continued like that. That band evolved into another band, a very big Tool influence that I was into. Incubus was a big thing. Science, that Brandon voice on Science was amazing. Make Yourself became huge. I continued in that aspect of things. That band fell apart, and then Mike Marino called me up one day and asked me if I wanted to join his band that he was forming called 3 Mile Scream. And then from there, 3 Mile Scream got just heavier and heavier. 3 Mile Scream initially was supposed to be a Seven Dust Taproot inspired band with lots of clean vocals, with just a little bit of harsh stuff going on. At the time, I was obsessed with Mike Patton, and I would listen to just about everything that he did, anything and everything. So I was really pushing my voice to a different limit, doing some more harsh vocals, but not really knowing how to do them, just pushing as hard as I could to try to make sounds. Probably not for the best. I was also taking singing lessons at the same time from a woman near my house in Two Mountains, and she wanted to train me to go sing for Cirque du Soleil, and I should have listened to her because I'd probably make more money. But I didn't, and I used all that technique that I learned there and applied it to 3 Mile Scream, applied it to my harsh vocals. Kill Switch Engage came out, and that was a huge inspiration, to the point of doing even more harsh vocals. Lamb of God came out, and then Lamb of God, Randy, came to Montreal to produce one of my friend's bands, the singer's vocals, Bloodshot Eye. He actually slept on my guitarist Alex Dellis's couch with his wife for a few days. This is in 2004 or 2005. I can't quite remember. And we hung out, and that was like a huge thing. And he like came up and like jammed with us and sang with us.
Wow.
It was really, really fun and cool, and that just like motivated me so much. We got signed to a subsection or whatever of Corporate Punishment Records, which is a subsidiary of Universal. And then that band broke up, and I joined Cryptopsy because Chris Donaldson, my guitarist, is a producer, and he likes to show off his mixes to the bandmates. He still does it to this day all the time. He's always trying to improve himself. He's never satisfied, but he loves to show off what he has worked on. And Flo, my drummer, was in a state of fluctuation of wanting to include clean vocals into extreme metal. Cryptopsy, that is. And he liked what he heard, so he hit me up and he asked me to join the band, and that was in 2007, and I've been there since then. So I definitely wasn't ready to be an extreme vocalist. I jumped into Cryptopsy being totally not prepared, but I've learned over the years how to scream, and toured with a bunch of amazing vocalists to get inspired and have conversations with them, and to teach myself how to be a better extreme vocalist. So it's a labor of love, just like the podcast. And you got to put the work in. If you don't put the work in, it's not going to work.
Absolutely. Matt, I got one question for you. I like to do this when I interview people. And Joe and Cassius, you could piggyback on this, but let's keep it under the band's umbrella. When you hear the word underrated, what's the first band that comes to mind?
I'm so obsessed with like certain things right now. Are you talking like the biggest band, like a big band, or like a band right now?
Could be anything.
Well, there's a band right now that I really like, and it's not because I'm on the album, but I am on the album. But I like
Cryptopsy.
It's this band from Denmark, and they're called LLNN. They're on Pelagic Records. They just dropped a new record. It's so good. It's like slow, heavy. There's a dude that plays like keys in it, and it's like soundscapes of just your worst nightmares. LLNN, just so damn good. Very unappreciated. A lot of Pelagic Records bands are a little bit unappreciated, and I hope that changes over the years.
Joe, Cassius, do you have one in mind?
I so many things I listen to, but like recent, I'm a huge Devin Townsend fan.
Hell yes.
I think he's probably like, I can't, at my age at this point, I've loved so many bands that's like, I don't have a favorite band. Just like I don't have a best friend. Everybody's just my friend, right?
Yes.
It's like,
we're not 12 anymore.
That's it. But if I would have to put somebody as like, who's like, do you really idolize or something, it would be like Devin Townsend, because the whole package for me anyway. And so it just happened to be like, I guess, Spotify figures out who you like and blah, blah, blah. So I go to Discover, and then it gives me this one called 4-Stroke Baron, which I've never heard of. So I press play, random. I just press play. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that like Devin actually produced this album I was listening to, or the song I was listening to. I didn't know at the time. I just had to. When I heard the sound, I was like, "Damn, what the fuck is this, man?" So I started to search for the band. Like, what's going on? And I say, "Oh, okay." Anyway, they sound like a Typo Negative vocal wise, right? So it's got that
massive
vampiric vibe. Yeah. Big voice. Out of key a bit, like a Deftones, which I don't like off key vocals, but like some artists for some reason with me they get a pass.
Chino can do that.
And then it's like super heavy Devin Townsend style stuff. So I'm like, wow, this is incredible. So now lately every time I'm doing like a video gaming session where I'm like racing a car or something, I have this just blasting, and it just keeps me going like in the game, So that's amazing. My underrated band, 4-Stroke Baron.
I have a great Devin Townsend story. I've opened for him. I was filling in for this band called The Catalyst with Mike Marino, and the only time that I could have a conversation with him was in the bathroom, so I didn't. And I've never had a conversation with him since.
Solid decision.
Yeah, I hate when fans do that to me, so I would never do it to another artist.
That's the last show I saw before everything went. February 2020.
Yes, with Hacking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We did 2 nights. I caught the first night, and it's like what freaks me out about this guy is just how he's it's like an evening at his house, basically.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't know what he's gonna do, what he's gonna say, and how he's gonna and he just talks to the audience as if it's a conversation. And then I wish I had bought both nights, the next night's going to be completely different, and it's like, it's amazing.
The streams he did during the pandemic were really good too.
Plus his podcast series. You ever listen to those?
I did. He put out a podcast album just like that. And then he's immediately number one in all across the globe.
And it's way too much information. At certain points, it's like, but dude, this guy's brutally honest. And that's what I love about him. And he's Canadian. He's awesome.
That's awesome. One underrated group I will throw in there, because I was just talking with my friend about this yesterday, Billy Talent. I think pretty criminally underrated. I think most people in America wouldn't know what's up with them. So, yeah, definitely.
Still remember Red Flag, right? Or what is it, Red Flag?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Oh, man, that was a banger. Jeez.
Yeah. Big thank you to Matt McGachy and the Vox&Hops Podcast for the collaboration this week. I had a lot of fun there, Joe. Just thinking back to this, definitely a good opportunity, and I'm glad we got to do this, especially as sort of a closing out to this era of the show.
Yeah, it just worked out that way. I've said it before, where it's like when the pieces just fall into place, hey, it's meant to be, right? Yeah, no, I was, like I said earlier, I was really wanting to get either us on his podcast or do something together. And again, it worked out on its own. It was fun because even in the interview, you're learning stuff about me. I'm learning stuff about you. I didn't know so many things, because we're just always like, hey, okay, let's go, let's do this. And we have to work on this today. We have to record this today. So it was fun to sort of be asked these things and share our stories and stuff. We hope you guys enjoyed it. I had fun.
100%, same here, and it's always a cool experience to sort of see a different side of us. So based on the feedback here, this may affect some of the future content that we do. We may continue to let you guys know even more about us. And a great way to give feedback in terms of what content you want to see and hear on this channel is to subscribe and click the notification bell on SoundMojo. We post community tabs. We put polls up all the time. Basically, any opportunity for you guys to tell us what you want to see and hear on the show and on the channel in general. We also have independent artists who are uploaded almost every single day on the channel. Any cool videos coming up, Joe, that people should know about?
Yeah, well, we just published one this week. Madison Lash, who has a fantastic voice, Losing Game. Standing 8, maybe the week before, with a new song called Losing Hand. It's interesting, Losing Game, Losing Hand. Title Holder on Wednesday, another a video of theirs. They're like a reggae ska band from, not reggae, why did I say reggae, but ska band from New York. And, just keep staying. We have much more coming in the 100%. Future.
We got tons of stuff on the way. Also, make sure to check out the SoundMojo merchandise for whatever the season may be. We got stuff for the warm weather, stuff for the cold weather, and we want you guys to go check that out in the description below, whether you're tuned in on audio or video. And last but not least, we are, of course, on social media, where we post all of these different sort of polls and updates for you guys, like I mentioned. So make sure to follow us on all of these platforms, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at SoundMojo, and stay up to date with us. Thanks so much for listening to this brand new episode of the show, and we'll catch you guys soon with the milestone episode number 50.
It's a doozy.